Good morning, everybody. This is Ms. Sprunger. Today is October 13th, and it's Tuesday. We're going to be going over stuff for our unit test. So our unit test is going to be this week. We're going to spend this week reviewing, going over some study guide type of questions. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get out our calculators, notebooks, and pencils. We're going to work on the following problems. So go ahead and get this one written down. So this says 9 plus n over 3, or n divided by 3, equals 14. So once we get that one written down, I'm going to go ahead and highlight. So I've got my non-variable terms and my variable terms. So remember, I want to go ahead and get rid of the non-variable term first. So that 9, I need to go ahead and move on over. And what I mean by that is I'm going to draw my line down the middle. I want to move that 9 over here so that I can get all my constants on one side and then have my variable term on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and you move a positive term by subtracting it. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides because I wanted to move 9 over. So 9 minus 9 cancels. I can go ahead and bring down my n over 3 equals, and then we've got 14 minus 9. And remember, you guys have access to your calculators for your test, so make sure that you're using them. So 14 minus 9 equals 5. And then this is where a lot of people get confused, but if you guys think about our actual goal, we want to get n by itself. So right now, n is being divided by 3. So to undo that division, think about what the opposite of division is. It's multiplication. So we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of that division. So times 3 divided by 3 cancels. I'm going to be left with n by itself. 5 times 3 gives me 15. N equals 15. So that's how we solve that first one. The second one, we've got x minus 4 divided by 3 equals negative 4. This one's kind of tricky, but I'll show you guys what to do in just a second. Let me grab my highlighter. So let's scroll down just a little bit. So with this x minus 4, typically people want to add the 4 to both sides, but before we can do that, I want you guys to think about something. This x minus 4, that whole expression is being divided by 3. So it is x minus 4, and I'm putting it in parentheses so we know that that's a whole expression. And that whole thing is being divided by 3. So x minus 4 divided by 3. So to get that x minus 4 by itself, I need to go ahead and undo that division by 3. So I'm dividing x minus 4 by 3. So that line here, remember, that means division. So to undo division, I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 3. That's going to cancel. I'm going to go ahead and bring down. I've got x minus 4. Now that expression's by itself. And then I've got negative 4 times 3, which is going to give me negative 12. And finally, if we've got x minus 4 equals negative 12. I want x to be all by itself. So I want to move that negative 4 over. And remember, we can't just move it. We've got to go ahead and do the opposite. So the opposite of a negative 4 would be to add 4 to both sides. So that's going to cancel. Negative 4 plus 4 cancels. I'm going to have x by itself. X equals, and then no matter how confident you are, make sure you're double checking, especially with negatives, because you do have access to this calculator. So I want to make sure you don't make any silly mistakes. So we've got negative 12 plus 4 equals negative 8. So x equals negative 8. All right, so that's our do now for today. So these are problems that you should definitely know how to do because they will appear on your unit test. Speaking of unit test, we're going to go review this every day this week. We've only got 3 class days this week. So our unit test, we're going to have 2-step equations. We're going to have variables on both sides. So those are those problems where we've got a variable and a constant on either side of the equal sign. We're going to have distributive property multi-step, combining both like terms multi-step equations. So those are what we worked on in week 2, I believe. We're going to work on applications. So those word problem type of things. So writing expressions and equations, rational equations. So with decimals and fractions, and then also finally working on those no solution, infinite solution, and one solution type of problems. So that's what we're going to be working on this week. This is reviewing everything that we've covered in this unit. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So as far as two-step equations go, this is something that you will see on your test. This is what we did in week 1. So this should be the easiest thing that's on your test, hopefully. But just in case, I'm going to go ahead and grab my highlighter and explain it to you guys. So, and if you rewatch this video, if you feel comfortable with a skill, you can go ahead and move on to another skill. But if you want to watch in a review, make sure you're all good. All of this is going to appear on your study guide as well. So I've got 8x is my variable term, and then I've got negative, oops, I meant to do that in green, I'm sorry. Negative 56 and positive 8. So those are my constants, and remember a variable term has the variable or the letter, the constant does not. So numbers like 8, 2, 3, negative 56, so anything that doesn't have a variable in it, okay? Now, I want to get 8x by itself, so I want to move everything away from that variable term. So I want to move that 8 over to the left side. I can't just move it though. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite of a positive 8, which would be to subtract 8 from both sides. That's how I'm going to move that positive 8. Negative 56 minus 8. Make sure you're working on using your calculator. And remember, if you need to practice where that negative button is, it is right next to your decimal point. So negative 56 minus 8 equals negative 64. And then I'm going to bring down my 8x. Okay, now I've got all my constants on the left, all my variables on the right. I want to go ahead and get this x by itself. Right now this is 8x, so 8 times x. I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to undo this multiplication by dividing both sides by 8. So 8x divided by 8 just gives me x. Negative 64 divided by 8. Go ahead and check your answer in your calculator just to make sure. Negative 64 divided by 8 is going to give us negative 8. And remember, whenever you're working on a problem, you can use whatever you get for x to check your answer. And what I mean by that is, actually, I'll just go ahead and show you guys real quick because I think this is super helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and move all this over real quick. And then I'm going to go ahead and rework this. So I'm going to write our problem. So we had negative 56 equals 8 plus 8x. So in that original problem we had plus 8x. So plus 8. Now, whenever you want to check your answer, you can plug in whatever you got for x into that wherever that x is or wherever that variable is. So wherever you see an x, I'm going to write whatever we got for x. So down here, we got negative 8 equals x. So where that x was up here, I just replaced it with negative 8 over here on the right side. So I'm going to work on solving it like any other problem. So negative 56 is just going to come down. I've got 8, but then if we remember, whenever we've got a number right next to parentheses, the distributive property, we're going to go ahead and multiply those two numbers together. So we're going to do 8 times negative 8, which is going to give me negative 64. And then finally, I'm going to bring down negative 56 again. 8 minus 64. I'm going to go ahead and do 8 minus 64. And that's going to give me negative 56. So if these two numbers equal each other, our answer checks out. That means that that is our one solution for that problem. So that is how you check your work. And you can do that with any problem, even a combining like terms problem, a multi-step equation, whatever you get for that missing variable. You can always, anytime you go back to the problem, plug in whatever that value is for that variable. And if you work through the problem and get the same answer on either side, that means you are correct. So I just wanted to review how to check your answer in a problem like this. Another two-step example, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. All right, so we've got 5 plus m divided by 8 equals 7. So again, I'm going to grab my highlighter. I've got my constants, and then I've got my variable terms. So m divided by 8 is going to be my variable term. So remember, I want to get m by itself at some point. So I want to go ahead and move everything away from m, but before I can get rid of that 8 or anything, I need to move this 5 over to the right. And I want to do that so I can get all of my constants on one side of the equal sign, all of my variable terms on the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to move 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides, because 5 minus 5 cancels. I'm going to bring down my m divided by 8 equals 7 minus 5 gives me 2. And we have m divided by 8 equals 2. Remember, we want m to be all by itself. So that line right here, that means division. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply both sides by 8 because I want to undo that division. So times 8 divided by 8 cancels. I'm going to have m by itself. 2 times 8, it's going to give me 16. So m equals 16. All right. Next problem. This is a variable on both sides problem. They will appear on your unit test. So make sure that you are taking your time with these. And you guys have limited time, so take your time on your exam or your test. So we've got 2k plus 3 equals 7 plus k. I'm going to go ahead and highlight both of my variable terms. I'm going to highlight both of my constant terms. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my line down the middle. Remember, we draw that line down the equal sign so that we remember to do everything to one side, we've got to do to the other side. So whenever we've got something like this, where we've got both sides are, we've got nothing to simplify, there's no distributive property, there's no combining of like terms, we've just got a variable and a constant, variable and a constant. So one of each time, there's nothing to simplify on either side. This is where we want to start moving stuff around the equal sign. So we're going to go ahead and look at our variable terms. We've got 2k and k. So I want you to think to yourself, which one of those is smaller, 2k or k? And also for a reminder, that k is the same thing as 1k. So 2 or 1, which one's smaller? 1k. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our arrows. So since k is smaller, it's a positive k, so I'm going to move it by subtracting it. So I'm going to subtract k from both sides. 2k minus k, well, remember that's just a minus 1k. So 2k minus 1k gives me just k by itself, or 1k. I'm going to bring down that plus 3 equals, and I'm going to bring down 7. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and, just to make sure that this is very clear, I've got my variable on the left, and I've got my constants on either side of the equal sign. I want to make sure that I can go ahead and move that 3 over because I want that k by itself. I want all of my variables on one side, all of my constants on the other. So I'm going to move that positive 3, and I can move a positive term by subtracting it. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. K equals 7 minus 3. That gives me 4. K equals 4. All right, this next both sides problem, we've got 6n minus 5 equals 8n plus 11. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight. I'm going to highlight my variable terms. Remember, our variable terms have the letter in them. My constants are going to get highlighted. So on your on your unit test that you take at the end of the week, I want to make sure that you guys know your resources, make sure you're using markers to highlight different types of terms. Lined paper helps you stay super organized, so if that helps you, make sure you're using it. That's going to be on Google Classroom. Sorry, I just felt like making that point. All right, so we've got 6n minus 5 equals 8n plus 11. So we've identified all of our terms. So I'm going to draw my line down the middle. Now I'm comparing 6n and 8n. Which one is smaller? 6n, because 6 is smaller than 8. So I'm going to go ahead and move 6n over to the other side by subtracting it from both sides, because I move a positive term by subtracting it. And remember, guys, I'm moving the negative or the smaller variable term over so that I don't have a negative variable value. That's the only reason that I'm doing that. So negative 5 is going to be brought down. 8n minus 6n gives me 2n. I'm going to bring down plus 11. Now I've just got a two-step equation to solve. I'm gonna, oops, that's not the right color. I've got my variable terms in yellow. I've got my constants in green. So I want to make sure that all of my greens are on one side, all of my yellows are on the other. So I want that 2n to be by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and move that positive 11 over to the other side by subtracting it. So I'm moving it over by subtracting 11. That's going to cancel. Negative 5 minus 11. Again, with any of those negative numbers, make sure that you're, especially with negatives, checking your work in your calculator. You really should be checking everything because it's test and you're allowed to use a calculator. Negative 5 minus 11 gives me negative 16 equals, and I'm going to bring down my variable, 2n. I want to get n by itself. Right now, n is being multiplied by 2, so 2 times n. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. 2n divided by 2 gives me n. And then negative 16 divided by 2, negative 16 in my calculator. Just make sure you're practicing. Divided by 2 is negative 8. All right. So n equals negative 8. And then again, I'm not going to show you guys all of this, but if you wanted to check your answer for some reason, you can take what we got for n. So we got negative 8. And you can go ahead and plug that in every time you see an n up here. So you would do 6 times negative 8 minus 5 equals 8 times negative 8 plus 11. So that's what you would do to check your answer for that. All right, if there's no questions on that one, we're going to go ahead and work on the distributive property with multi-step equation solving. So these, I think it's super important, especially the combining like terms ones, but super important to go ahead and highlight your variable terms and your constant terms. And also when you're highlighting terms, make sure that you're including those negative signs in there so that we know that they are negative and we're not going to forget or lose track of those guys. Now you might be wondering why I'm highlighting that negative 6 in blue, and I'll show you guys in just a second. So whenever you see a problem like this, make sure if you're taking a test or something, make sure you get it written down exactly how you see it on the test. Make sure you double check that you're not making any silly mistakes. So I'm going to look at my left side. Is there anything that I can simplify, combine, any parentheses I can get rid of? No. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down 28 minus r equals. And then on that right side, is there anything that I can simplify, combine, get rid of? Yes. I can go ahead and distribute that negative 6 to those two terms within the parentheses. Remember, we talked about the distributive property. Whenever you've got a number directly in front of parentheses, you can go ahead and multiply that number to the two terms inside of the parentheses, or however many terms there are. On your quiz or test, or on your test, you'll only see 2 terms in those parentheses, but in the future in high school, you might see a bunch of parentheses, or a bunch of terms in those parentheses. So we're going to do negative 6 times r, which gives me negative 6r. Negative 6 times negative 6. And just to check yourself, since you've got negative numbers, negative 6 times negative 6, that's going to give us positive 36. All right. Now that we're here, I'm going to go ahead and highlight my constants again in yellow. I'm going to highlight my variables in green. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. So since everything's simplified on both sides, I'm going to compare my two variable terms. So which one is smaller, negative r or negative 6r? And when comparing negatives, it can be kind of tricky, but whatever one is further from 0 on a number line is going to be your smaller one. And by that, I mean, if you're thinking negatively. So negative 6 is smaller because it's further from 0 on a number line. So I'm going to go ahead and move negative 6r over by adding 6r to both sides. I'm going to bring down my 26, so 26 negative r plus 6r. So remember that negative r is the same thing as negative 1. So in your calculator, you can type in negative 1 plus 6, and that gives me positive 5r 5r equals, and then I'm going to bring down 36. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight. I'm going to highlight my constants. I'm going to highlight my variable. All right, remember I want all my variables by themselves, all my constants on the other side. So I want 5r by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 26 over to the right side so that I can get it over there with its other constant friend. So I'm going to go ahead and move 26 by subtracting it from both sides. 26 minus 26 cancels. I'm going to go ahead and bring down 5r equals, and then 36 minus 26 is going to give us 10. If I've got 5r equals 10, I'm going to go ahead and get r by itself by dividing both sides by 5. 5r divided by 5 is going to give me r by itself. 10 divided by 5 gives me 2. So that is how you solve a combining distributive property multi-step problem. We're going to go over another example, so don't worry. All right, these will appear on your exam, or on your test, so make sure that you are preparing for that. So I'm going to go and highlight. I'm going to highlight that number in front of those parentheses in a different color because I know that that's not a constant in this case because we're going to get rid of that number real soon anyways. I'm going to highlight my variables in yellow, my constants in yellow, variables in green, excuse me. And then I'm going to draw that line down the middle. So if I'm looking at the left side of my equal sign, I've got 3 parentheses 1 minus 6x. So looking at this, I want to make sure that I get rid of these parentheses. I know I can simplify those. So when everything's simplified, can I get rid of any parentheses? Can I combine like terms? You want to make sure everything's simplified before you start moving things around the equal sign. So I'm going to go ahead and take 3 times 1, which is 3. 3 times negative 6k. You can go ahead and take your calculator and type in 3 times negative 6. That gives me negative 18. And don't forget to add that k in there. And then I'm looking at the right side. Is there anything that I can combine or simplify? No, so I'm just going to bring down 3k minus 18. All right. I'm going to grab my highlighter. I'm going to highlight my constants. I'm going to highlight my variables. Whoops. That's a All right, now that everything's simplified on both sides, I can go ahead and get rid of my smaller variable terms. So I'm looking at negative 18k and 3k. I want you to think to yourself, which one is smaller? Negative 18k is smaller because it's a negative versus a positive. So 3k is a positive, but also negative 18 is much, much smaller. It's further away from 0. So we're going to go ahead and move that negative 18k over the right side, and we're going to move it by adding it to both sides. So adding 18k, oops, 18k to both sides. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 3. So 3k plus 18k. So make sure 18 plus 3, that's going to give us 21k. I'm going to bring down negative 18. I'm going to highlight. All right. Now I want to get everything over to the, I want to get all the constants over to the left side. So I want to move that negative 18 over. And that's because I want to get 21k by itself. So I want to get all of my constants on one side. So on that left side, I want to get all my variables on the right. So I'm going to move negative 18 by adding 18 to both sides. 3 plus 18 gives me 21. I'm going to bring down 21k. Well, I want to get k by itself, so this is 21k times k. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 21 by dividing both sides. 21k divided by 21 gives me k by itself. 21 divided by 21 is going to give me 1. So 1 equals k. All right, guys. that's as far as we're going to get for today. I did want to show you something really quick. So students, you'll have a test at the end of the week. Please take this week to ask questions, study, watch lessons. I'm here for whatever help and support you need. Make sure that you're taking advantage of the resources that you have. We've got the Unit 1 study guide. I'm going to post all of the videos of our lessons this week. So this needs to be completed before you take the test. I'm not going to post the test until Thursday after all the lessons are done. So this is a study guide that has all sorts of practice problems for you to do before taking the quiz or the test on Thursday or Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. I hope that everybody has a great Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to go do some more review and make sure we have lots of practice in before our test. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.